What kind of person siphons electricity from their neighbor's home to fuel their shiny new Tesla, knowing it could burn the whole place down? That's what I asked myself the night I caught Karen, my neighbor of 5 years, red-handed. The hum of her car's charger, illicitly plugged into my garage's outlet, was the first clue. I stood there, staring at the thick black cable snaking across the lawn, my heart pounding with disbelief. Karen, with her loud voice and louder personality, had always been a force in our quiet cul-de-sac. She'd storm into HOA meetings, her oversized frame filling the doorway, demanding stricter rules on lawn maintenance or louder complaints about kids' bikes left on sidewalks. But this was a new low. I followed the cable from my garage, hidden under a poorly disguised pile of leaves, to her driveway, where her Tesla gleamed under the streetlight, its charging port glowing smugly. The audacity hit me like a punch. My wife, Lena, had been complaining about our skyrocketing electric bill for months, and now I knew why. I wanted to yank the plug right then, but something darker stirred in Maya need to make her face the consequences. I didn't confront her that night. Instead, I watched. For 3 nights, I documented her routine at 10 p.m. When she thought we were asleep, Karen would waddle out in her oversized slippers, check the street, and plug her Tesla into my outlet. She'd even rigged a cheap extension cord to stretch the distance, the kind that screams fire hazard. I took photos, timestamped them, and checked my breaker box. Sure enough, the circuit was overheating. The wires strained from her car's relentless draw. Lena was furious when I showed her. "She's stealing from us, Tom," she whispered, her eyes wide with betrayal. "What if the house catches fire? What about the kids? Our twins, Mia and Max, were only 7, asleep upstairs, oblivious to the danger." I felt a knot tighten in my chest. Karen wasn't just taking our money, she was risking our home, our safety. I started digging deeper, talking to other neighbors. Mrs. Ellison, the sweet retiree next door, mentioned flickering lights in her house too. Carlos, the young guy across the street, said his garage outlet had mysteriously tripped twice that month. A pattern emerged, and Karen was at its center. The truth unraveled faster than I expected. Karen wasn't just stealing from mesh tapped into at least 2 other homes on the block. Mrs. Ellison's grandson, a tech-savvy kid, had caught her on his Ring camera, fumbling with an outlet behind her rose bushes. Carlos found a similar setup behind his shed, complete with Karen's telltale neon green extension cord. We pieced it together. Karen, desperate to charge her Tesla without paying for a proper home charging station, had turned our neighborhood into her personal power grid. The gall of it burned me up. Lena wanted to call the police, but I held off. I wanted Karen to face us, to see the people she'd betrayed. I called a meeting with Mrs. Ellison and Carlos, and we planned a confrontation. But here's where it gets messy. Mrs. Ellison let slip that Karen had been struggling since her husband left her last year. She'd blown her savings on that Tesla, a status symbol to mask her crumbling life. Part of me felt a flicker of pity, but it didn't excuse the danger she'd put us in. The night of the showdown arrived, and the air felt electric, literally and figuratively. I waited until Karen plugged in her Tesla, then flipped on my garage's floodlights, bathing her in harsh white light. She froze, her hand still on the cable, her face a mix of shock and defiance. "What do you think you're doing, Tom?" she barked, her voice sharp enough to cut glass. I stepped forward. Carlos and Mrs. Ellison behind me, their faces set with quiet anger. You're stealing my power. Karen, I said, holding up my phone with the photos. You're stealing from all of us. Her eyes darted to the neighbors, then back to me, her cheeks flushing red. You can't prove anything. She snapped, but her voice wavered. Carlos held up his own phone, showing the ring footage. Mrs. Ellison, trembling but firm, added, You've been using my outlet too. Karen, my lights flicker every night because of you. The weight of our evidence pressed down on her, but Karen didn't back down. She straightened, her bulk seeming to expand, and sneered. You're all just jealous of my car. You can't afford one, so you're ganging up on me. That's when the twist hit. A gut punch none of us saw coming. Carlos, usually calm, stepped forward, his voice low but shaking. Karen, my sister's on a ventilator in the hospital. Her backup battery failed last week because your setup tripped our power. She could have died. The air seemed to suck out of the street. Karen's face went pale, her mouth opening and closing like a fish. Mrs. Ellison gasped, and I felt Lena's hand grip my arm. Carlos's sister, Maria, had been fighting cancer for months, and we'd all rallied to support him. Karen knew about Marie, everyone did. Her defiance crumbled, just for a second, before she doubled down. That's not my fault, she shouted, but her voice cracked. I didn't know. I could see the panic in her eyes, the realization that her actions had rippled far beyond a few extra bucks on our bills. The confrontation was spiraling, and the sparks from her overloaded setup were literal Naomi breaker box hissed, a faint wisp of smoke curling into the night. The standoff teetered on the edge of chaos. Karen's Tesla charger sparked violently, the extension cord glowing faintly as it strained against the load. I lunged for the plug, yanking it from my outlet before the whole setup could ignite. The sudden silence was deafening, broken only by the faint hum of the streetlights. Karen's bravado faltered, her hands shaking as she clutched her keys like a lifeline. You're making a big deal out of nothing, she yelled, but her voice lacked its usual venom. Carlos took a step closer, his eyes burning with a quiet fury I'd never seen. Nothing. My sister's life isn't nothing. Karen. Mrs. Ellison, her voice soft but piercing, added, You knew better. You're not stupid. You just didn't care. The words landed like blows, and Karen's shoulders slumped, her defiance cracking under the weight of our collective anger. I could see the fight draining out of her, but I wasn't ready to let her off. Not yet. The next moments were a blur. Lena called the fire department, worried about the smoking breaker box. Sirens wailed in the distance as neighbors peeked out their windows, drawn by the commotion. Karen tried to retreat to her house, but Carlos blocked her path, not with force, but with words. You don't get to walk away from this, he said. You need to see what you've done. He pulled out his phone again, showing a photo of Maria in her hospital bed, tubes snaking from her frail body. Karen looked away, but I grabbed the phone and held it up. Look at her. Karen, this is what your nothing did. Her eyes met the screen, and for the first time, I saw something like shame flicker across her face. The fire truck pulled up, and a firefighter inspected the breaker box, shaking his head. You're lucky this didn't burn the house down, he said, his voice gruff. This setup's a death trap. Karen's knees buckled, and she sank onto the curb, her bravado gone, replaced by a hollow, haunted look. The collapse was swift and brutal. The fire department shut off my power to prevent a fire, leaving our house dark and quiet. Karen's Tesla sat lifeless in her driveway, its charging port dark, a silent testament to her greed. The neighbors dispersed, but not before Mrs. Ellison left Karen with a parting shot. You've got a lot to make right. Over the next week, the truth spread like wildfire. Other neighbors came forward, reporting tripped breakers and suspicious cords. Karen's reputation, already shaky, crumbled entirely. She stopped showing up to HOA meetings, her absence louder than her usual rants. I heard whispers that she was selling her Tesla, unable to afford the repairs for a proper charging station. Part of me wanted to feel satisfied, but the victory felt hollow. Lena and I had to replace our breaker box. A $2,000 hit we could barely afford. Carlos's sister was stable, but the scare had left him shaken. His trust in the neighborhood shattered. Yet, in the wreckage, something unexpected emerged. A few weeks later, Karen knocked on my door. I braced myself for another fight, but she looked different, smaller. Somehow, her usual swagger gone. I'm sorry, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I was desperate. I thought I could keep up appearances. But I messed up. She handed me an envelope with a check for $1,000. Half the cost of the breaker box repair. It's all I can afford right now, she said, her eyes avoiding mine. I'm selling the car. I'm trying to make things right. I didn't know what to say. The anger was still there, but so was something else, empathy. Maybe. For someone who'd lost so much and lashed out in the worst way. I took the check, nodding. This is a start, I said. She nodded back, tears brimming, and walked away. The neighborhood slowly healed. Carlos forgave Karen, though he kept his distance. Mrs. Ellison started checking on her, bringing her casseroles and gentle advice. Lena and I fixed our breaker box, and the twins, blissfully unaware, kept playing in the yard. I learned later that Karen had started volunteering at a local charity, channeling her energy into something good. It wasn't redemption, not fully, but it was a step. The experience changed us all. We started a neighborhood watch, not just for crime, but for each other, making sure no one felt desperate enough to cross lines like Karen had. Her fall taught us something vital. Community isn't just about shared space, it's about shared burdens. When we lift each other up, we keep the lights on, literally and figuratively. Karen's mistake nearly burned us down, but it also sparked something better, a reminder that even in our worst moments, there's a chance to rebuild, to make things right.